aim that we are trying to address is that how do we improve the health and well-being of each individual, right, and specifically the vulnerable communities. So that's the complex problem that we are trying to solve here. So when we started Apurva, the larger idea was that how do we collectivize the entire knowledge and the wisdom that we are getting from multiple source of, I would say, knowledge again. Because when we work with the, let's say, community institutions, when we work with the ecosystem players, we learn a lot, right? But how do we democratize that particular set of information, which can eventually benefit the larger ecosystem again? Because we don't want to retain it within ourselves, but if the ecosystem is working with the larger community, it helps the entire ecosystem. So before Apurva, when we used to do the field interactions quite a lot of times, we used to record everything, let's say, through voice recording on phone, and probably sometimes a lot of time we used to take notes and all, right. But eventually when we started using Apurva for few of the interactions, we were able to synthesize in much more streamlined manner, the structured manner, and we didn't have to probably, I would say, spend a lot of time synthesizing this information as well, because it used to be more accessible, easily consumable in a structured way, because I can again find like what are the different call to actions, what are the different themes that are emerging out of the conversations, then are there any new ideas that are coming out of the conversations on the field. So those were some of the benefits that we derived out of Apurva. So right now a lot of time when we do the strategic meetings or even for review meetings where sometimes domain rich conversations happen, we try to involve Apurva because it will be able to streamline those conversations again in terms of what information needs to be coming out of that conversation, and how do we also make sure that that gets institutionalized to some extent, right? So even if, let's say, a person or an entity doesn't sustain after a point, the knowledge still remains in the ecosystem. So that's how we are using, and we have tried in library public health domain to some extent right now, and we are planning to explore further on the ground as well. So when we started Apurva, a couple of things that we had to start doing was to structure the conversation with certain agenda, right? Because a lot of time the way technology works also we understand that. So it cannot be completely where we talk about everything randomly in that particular line of meeting, but we try to structure it in a certain domain-wise conversation or the certain topics that we want to talk about, which will eventually benefit the larger community. So we had to start doing that. What we stopped doing was largely about how do we again think it through before even starting on any of the conversations, right? So we used to have probably preparatory work that we used to do, because that eventually will help in the structuring of the entire meeting of the conversations. And we also started building the capacities of the team who will be using Apurva as a product line, right? So we just want to ensure that they understand the value out of Apurva, and then they are able to derive that value and what all they can do with this platform. So that is what we have done. So at the early stage of the usage of Apurva, we were able to query some of the work that we are doing with women entrepreneurs, and that was still very exploratory work that we did on the field. But what we were able to derive out of that was what are the main challenges that, let's say, women entrepreneurs face when they want to grow as an entrepreneur, right? What are the different barriers do they face? So this all we were able to understand with the queryable insights that Apurva offers, and we were able to also translate into different languages like Tamil and all that we can showcase to the field team as well. So the first aha moment that I had was certainly when I queried the first question after my conversation with women entrepreneurs. So first thing that I queried was what are the top 3 barriers that women entrepreneurs face, right? And the way it was able to synthesize the all outputs, right? Starting from, let's say, financial literacy, community support, then probably training, English language support, and all of it, right? So it was really, I would say, wonderful to see that it was able to pick up those nuances across different languages, across different geographies. Because while we did most of this conversation on the field, some of the synthesis probably might have become very complex sometimes when we start explaining from our lens. But Apurva was able to pick those nuances and able to synthesize that. The second aha moment was when I was explaining the capabilities of Apurva to leadership and the field teams as well. One of the questions that they asked was, how can it be useful for the, I would say, local staff, right? A lot of times the language becomes a barrier. So when I queried some question and I asked Apurva to translate into Tamil, it was able to do that and pick it up clearly, right? So it was surprising for the team who is going to use it as well, and also for the leadership team in terms of the capabilities it has. what we are aiming to do with Apurva is to use it even for the communities and the ecosystem network that we hold. And let's say when I say field level insight, when we have a lot of programs where we do implementation work where frontline workers engage with the community on a regular basis, right? So a lot of wisdom also lies within the communities that we want to derive within the ecosystem. So we are going to use it with the communities eventually. Again, both public health and livelihood domain. And likewise, we'll also use Apura going forward in some of the community institutions meetings where a lot of times this governance or statutory related information comes out, right? Because while community can help us in at the ground level what actions happen, but at the community institution you also understand what are different governance structure can be possibly made for the ecosystem. At the community level, we want to derive the insights that community holds in the local knowledge that they have, because eventually that is the crux of most of the work that we do. Even in our program, we try to find that knowledge here. So that is what we want to use Apurva for. Then at the community institutional level, we want to understand what are the different governance related challenges, governance related structures that we can put in place which can effectively help the communities. And at the group level, probably at the organizations like Ruti and CMS, we want to understand whatever collective wisdom that we do with our set of work, not beyond implementation, but also from the networking or from the design evaluations and all. Also, we want to derive that knowledge for the ecosystem and the communities. Apura can be certainly used with a lot of government institutional work specifically, because government institutions offer that scale to most of the problems that we are trying to solve. So if Apura can be utilized, let's say in government institution, that would be the biggest value add for the ecosystem as well, because one government doing something in probably Bihar, if that can be leveraged for some other government in Tamil Nadu, that's a really good in terms of specifically across the domains that we work, right, which is agriculture, health, which are a lot of time contextualized in nature, right? So how do we bring different context related knowledge in other places where not let's say 100% fit it can be, but at least to some extent 80%, even if it can be fit well, then the discovery cost goes certainly down. So those are some of the use cases I can think about. So again, going back to the resilience work that we were discussing about, right? So the idea is that let's say within resilience, if we are able to talk to market players, service providers, government, and come up with something which can ensure the discovery of resilience measures first of all, then second, who can address each of that resilience components, right? So all of that can be enabled by Apurva if all these ecosystem players start using it, so they understand the value that each of them brings to the ecosystem, and again that can be translated to different geographies, different communities as well. I mean, from the ecosystem journey, I mean, when we saw Apura for the first time, we were already excited about what it can do, right? And when we started journey with Apurva from January onwards, we have seen the growth, how it has evolved over a period of time as a platform as well. And we have certainly tried to do it from our side on what it can eventually offer to the ecosystem, but we are excited on what it holds for the future as well. So we'll continue doing that.